Hello, I'm Greg Mingarelli, Mayor of the City of Prescott. Welcome to Prescott Today. We're here in the Museum of Indigenous People. Very excited about this segment for you. What a hidden gem we have here in this museum, and very excited to show off today this awesome museum of amazing artifacts that are all local here in Yavapai County. We're here with Cindy Gresser and Manuel Lucero. Thanks so much for being with us today and sharing the museum with us. I look forward to many great stories and just awesome artifacts that you're going to share with us today. So Cindy, let's start with you. How did you get involved with the museum? How long have you been with the museum? I know it's probably a long story.
It's a super long story. We moved to Prescott. My husband and I moved to Prescott in 2001. And we were looking for volunteer opportunities after we took about 8 or 9 months off and enjoyed ourselves playing golf and hiking and doing all the great stuff that you do in Prescott. And he was attracted to the buildings. I mean, from the outside, you see these beautiful stone buildings and you immediately want to know, what are they, where do they come from, how do they get there, why do they look that way? And he volunteered first. And became a desk volunteer, and the director at the time wanted to do a fundraiser. And he came home and he said, okay, you have to join the museum. And I said, no, I'm doing Chino Valley Lions Club and the League of Women Voters and helping out at the Moose Lodge, and I've got my stuff. And he said, no. You have to go there. They want to do a fundraiser. I know you know how to do that, and you can make a difference. I said, what? He goes, just trust me, just go there, figure it out, you can make a difference. And I came here and really thought at first that, of course, I was going to start engaging Native people, and that was really interesting to me. And then I found out about the smoke eye, and I was like, whoa, that was not what I was expecting at all. But the director at the time wanted to start making changes. I believed in those changes, and I truly believe that, yeah, I could help make a difference in this place. And so from working the front desk, or this desk, to becoming secretary of the board, eventually president of the board, writing the mission statement, and then becoming the director in 2009 and executive director right after that, it's been an interesting and very fulfilling journey.
Yeah, what a great story, and thank you for your leadership and your service, your commitment to this museum. So Cindy, you're on the cusp of some changes, some big changes with your role and responsibility. Share with us what's going on.
I have given my retirement notice. I am retiring. I am moving to Tucson to spend time with my family and to really just relax a little in life and enjoy my niece's children and play in a pool and maybe have some other volunteer opportunities down there. But I do plan on staying involved here in the museum. We've got some exciting things coming up. I want to be part of those plans. I want to continue to see this museum come to its full potential, and I think we're really close to that. And so I will stay involved. But as I tell people, I am moving where I live, but I'm not leaving.
No, that's good. You'll always be a Prescottonian.
It's everybody's hometown and everyone's hometown of mine.
Yep. No, that's great. And you know, you've led through some amazing changes, and we're going to talk about that later. And I know this is kind of emotional. I can hear it in your voice as you're kind of parting ways to some degree with the museum, and you've left a lot of your life, invested your life here. And so thank you.
Thank you very
again
much.
for your leadership, and look forward to kind of diving a little deeper in some of the fun challenges that you've had and what you've led through here at the museum. So thank you, Cindy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we have Manuel here, and many folks maybe don't know you as well as Cindy, associated with the museum, and you're going to be taking the reins here and following Cindy. Give us just a little background about yourself and then how you became involved with the museum.
Very interesting story. Oshio, Manu Lucero, what I said was, hello, my name is Manuel Lucero. I'm from the Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. And not unlike the Smokai, I am a dancer. But as a traditional dancer and gourd dancer, I was very unlike the Smokai in that way. When my wife and I first moved to the Prescott area, we heard about and found out about the Smokai Museum. And my wife asked me, "You ever heard of any Smoky Indians?" And I thought about all 572 federally recognized tribes, and I thought, no, I haven't. So we found out about the museum. I met Cindy actually at a powwow that I was dancing at here at Watson Lake. And I wanted to get involved with the powwow. My wife and I were both on the powwow committee in college. We were both part of the Native American Students Club. I wanted to get involved with the committee here and be involved with the community at large as well. And because that's what you should do. That's what you should do. You should contribute to where you live. And I asked one of the committee members, well, where do you guys meet? And he said, oh, we meet over at the Smokai Museum. And I was like, you're kidding me. Okay. So I came to the museum, and Cindy kind of gave me the nickel tour and explained to me how things were changing through the years. And first she gave me a job cleaning toilets. So I literally worked from the bottom.
Nice.
I do have an educational background in American Indian Studies. So I was able to talk about and to some of these objects that were in the museum. And one very interesting story about a pipe. There was what we call a chinupa, or what you would refer to as a peace pipe. And it was in one of the cases, and it was displayed together. Now, typically we wouldn't display an object like that together. It's a ceremonial object. And the stone bowl represents Mother Earth, and the stem represents Father Sky as a tree reaching up to Creator. And when you put them together, you get a gift from God. You get a child. So you don't display them together unless they're being used. And so when it's being used, that smoke carries your prayers and thoughts and words up, and Creator is in the conversation, therefore no lies are told, hence the term peace pipe. But not only did they have it displayed together, they had it in the wrong hole. And so I drew a picture because she didn't understand what I was saying. And I was like, no, you have the stem in the bowl. It goes the other way. And so first of all, you shouldn't even have it together.
Right.
And so she's like, interesting. So I think that's where I caught her attention as somebody that might be valuable here. And I think so. But
It was more than that.
but it just, from cleaning toilets and sweeping floors to helping putting exhibits together to we had some dancers bail on us for the Smokey's Museum's 80th birthday. And at last minute, and Cindy was really stressed about it. And I said, I got your back. I'm going to get a hold of some dancers. And so we did. We filled that area downstairs with dancers. And by fill the area, I mean I made everybody who was watching get up and participate. So we had the area full with dancers.
Right.
It was just one of many things that went wrong that day. It ended up being quite a beautiful day, but in all honesty, it was a combination of all of those things. And I saw in Manual leadership qualities that could bring this museum the next step. I believe in hiring from the ground up, and the best way to learn about any company, any institution, anything that you're doing is to know every single aspect of it. So yeah, sometimes cleaning the toilet is a step to a great future. And I just think that being around and again, having the experience of meeting so many different people and so many Smoke-Eye people, Native people that visit here, being able to relate to them and talk to them, because many of our vendors and artists are traditional dancers. And so just like anything else, if you can relate to people, you're such a stronger individual in any role that you assume. And so, but Manuel is very much the future of this museum.
Manuel, thank you for sharing a little bit of your story, how you got here. I love the idea that as a leader, you were willing to start and do whatever was asked of you here at the museum. And then also, I just love the fact that you're so immersed in your culture as a Cherokee, keeping that alive, continuing to dance. And I'm assuming at Watson Lake, barring any pandemics, that you guys are annually or routinely dancing.
We are every year, third weekend of September, minus, well, the craziness that was last year. But we, thanks to the city of Prescott, we are scheduled to have the powwow again this September, 17th, 18th, and 19th. So we typically bring about 3,500 people through there. A lot of heads in beds, if you will.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great thing for the city and a great thing for the community.
Well, it's just so important to keep those traditions alive, and for us to all remember where we all came from, and so thank you for doing that. And I hope to be there myself with my family. I have a couple girls that are Navajo that I want to make sure, and I appreciate the fact that they have a way to connect with those roots. Very important. So thank you. You know, we've been talking about changes for both of you, and the museum had a really big change in 2020. A lot of things happened in 2020, as we know, with the pandemic and everything. But Cindy, you know, probably one of the biggest changes this museum has seen in 2020. Share with us a little bit.
In February of 2020, we officially changed the name of the museum to the Museum of Indigenous People. And that came after months of discussion with several different focus groups, discussing it with the city, Tourism Advisory Committee, the city manager, yourself, everybody. I mean, we tried to get as many people involved in the discussion as possible. It has been a topic of conversation off and on here from the mid-90s. The Smoke-Eye people stopped dancing in 1990. They formally disbanded their organization in 2001 so that no other corporation would ever have that name. Since that time, we have worked diligently toward preserving the Smoke-Eye story. It has a place in history and it has a place in this museum, but not amidst Native objects. It is a separate story. Again, through much discussion, people don't come to Prescott looking for Smoke-Eye. If you're from Prescott, you know Smoke-Eye, but you don't come here looking for Smoke-Eye. You would like to know what the story of the local Indigenous people is, not was, is. And so we needed a name that represented not just our local people, but the other tribal entities that we represent, which are throughout the Southwest, because the Southwest was a big area that has expanded and contracted over many, many, many periods of time. Not an easy decision whatsoever, but it was necessary. And it has brought so much benefit to the museum as a whole. I cannot even begin to tell you. People are learning to spell Indigenous.
Yeah.
That's a bonus.
That's a bonus. And if you don't want to try that, you can just go for MIP. And some people go for MOIP. That's okay too. But it was a necessary change to reflect who and what we show in this museum and the stories that we tell.
Yes.
And that became clearly essential after 10 or 15 years here myself.
Not an easy transition. I appreciate your courage and your perseverance to get that done. Thank you. For our viewers, give them a little snippet of what's the Smoke-Eye? What is that?
Smoke-Eye is a made-up word. The Spaniards, when they came through, named the Hopi people the Moki. And so in 1921 and 22, a group of generally white businessmen here in Prescott came together to save the rodeo. They did performances on the rodeo grounds in a very farcical way. They called themselves the Way Out West Players. And they mocked Indian ceremony, they mocked dance in many, many different ways. But what they did is they saved the world's oldest rodeo 33 years after it had started and got it back in the black. At the end of 22, very important women here in town, Grace Sparks, Charlotte Hall, Kate Corey, came to this group of men and said, hey, we get it. We understand what you are doing and why you are doing it. But if you're going to do it, please try to do it in a more respectful way. And so at that point in time, they actually used their resources of funding. They acquired books, they acquired artifacts, they acquired objects to try to, as authentically as they could in a 45-minute performance, replicate Native ceremony. Was it still offensive to Native people? You betcha. In 1923, the first protest came from the Hopi snake priests and is documented in the National Archives. Yet they did this because, again, it was beneficial for the town. They raised money, they had fun. And women joined in 1928. It became really Prescott's largest social club. And at its height in 1940s and 50s, had upwards of 700 members. But it was a club. It was, some people refer to it as a lodge. And they had rank and order and tattoos and names that they gave to the rank and file within their organization. But clearly by the 60s and 70s, it was on its way out. As young people left Prescott, they were not coming home ready to dress up and dunk themselves in a vat of dye or put on Max Factor makeup and yarn wigs and shake their booties out there on the rodeo grounds anymore. And so the population, if you will, of those members decreased, while the Native voice increased in the 1970s through AIM and many other Native organizations. Things happened in the 1980s that were not good within the organization that caused fractures. And so by 89, the Hopi people came and protested, along with many other local Indigenous people. And then in 1990, the protests hit vehemently at the courthouse and at the rodeo grounds. And frankly, their performance was less than stellar in many regards. Part of their ceremony was what they called the stomp board, and that was missed 14 times during the final ceremony. So it was time to end, and they did in 1990. And then for about 10 years, with some help from community members, they tried to run this museum, but it was confusing. There was a mix of artifacts that you see here, cultural resource material as we refer to it now, but also displayed were very objectionable parts of smoke eye costuming. And so the latter part of the 1990s and then into 2000 when I arrived, we removed all smoke eye ephemera, all smoke eye costuming, so that when people came in, as they looked at an object, they knew that they were looking at a Native American object. At this point in time, the only things in this gallery space that are not Native are some of our paintings. We're blessed to have the largest collection of Kate Corey paintings on display in the United States. We're also very fortunate that the Swanson family, Ray Swanson's family, has been generous to us and gifted us a few of his paintings as well. Smoke eye had a place in history. In the 20s through the 40s, Native people were viewed as the vanishing race. And what they did was what they felt was appropriate to try to preserve. What we have now learned is it is no one's job to preserve someone else's culture.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. You can never do it effectively, and you can never do it the right way. And so what you do is you lift up, you support, you help, and that's all.
Thank you for sharing that story. I think, for our viewers, smoke eye, especially for those that are maybe newer to Prescott, wouldn't mean anything to them.
Has no context.
And so I think the other thing that's important for people to understand is while you've changed the name of the museum and now, it's kind of primarily this Indigenous people, which is important, you're also preserving that story of the smoke eye. you have some artifacts, and that's not going away.
It is not going away.
And actually, you've probably elevated the ability to tell that story by changing the name, getting more people here. And so I applaud you in that, because I appreciate you seeing the value in our history of saving the rodeo and their original intent anyway. And so I think that's important for our viewers to know.
Absolutely. We are working with the National Endowment of the Humanities to preserve those archives, the papers, the ephemera, the costuming, set design, set decoration, descriptions, all of it. We have it very carefully stored, and we're not going to do another exhibit of it until it can be done properly, so that those objects are not at risk, and so that people clearly know when they are going in there that they are walking into a space where they are no longer looking at Native artifacts. They are clearly viewing a piece of Prescott history.
Yeah.
And we want that clearly delineated.
Yeah, very good. So you guys tell us a little bit about what people will see in the museum. Manuel, what do you have displayed here? Give us a little overview of what people will see when they come to the museum.
Sure. Well, when you come to the museum, the first thing you see is the exterior. And it was meant to resemble and look like let's say, a Hopi Pueblo. And you can see the many different levels by the odd windows. You also notice that there's not one single window that's the same size as the next one in this entire structure. It is quite magnificent to look at and view from the outside. When you walk inside, we do have the largest collection on display, or of cultural resource material on display, of locally sourced pottery. The only other museum that comes close to having what we have is the Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. by the Smithsonian. So that's kind of a little bonus for our little town of Prescott and for our little museum here. You also see pottery and baskets and so on from other cultures all over. But not only will you see ancient things here, you'll also see very contemporary and beautiful Native art. Everything from paintings and maybe tithu or kachina dolls to wonderful beaded jewelry, or even a skateboard deck. Native people's culture is alive and thriving and intrinsic, just like everyone else. What we want you to walk away with, if anything, is that fact. We do school tours here, and there's always little Johnny, and when you ask little Johnny, what do you think happened to all the Indians, he'll tell you they're all dead. And I said, wow, does Dad know? And we try to correct that and let folks know that Native American culture is thriving and is continuing, and is very beautiful.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So locally in the Prescott area, maybe even Yavapai County, Yavapai Indians, what Indians are represented with your exhibits here that were local indigenous people?
Sure, we have cultural cases that are throughout here that focus on the main, well, I say main, but the most prevalent and recognizable and
names.
popular tribes. So with the Yavapai, of course, and that's the
Yes.
first case you see when you come in, because we are on Yavapai land.
Yes.
And regardless of what your deed says or what have you, it's Yavapai land. Then we have our Pima and Papago, or Akmo Odam and Tohono Odam. We also have our Ende, or Apache cultural case. Then we have our Tene, or Navajo cultural case. And then we also have our Hopi cultural case. And so you get a little bit of flavor, just a little flavor, a little peek through a window, if you will, into those local cultures. And a lot of us Native people here in the greater Prescott area, there's about a little over 3,000 Native people here, and only 182 are Yavpe, Prescott Yavapai. So the rest of us are all transplants, either from Oklahoma or somewhere else here in the Southwest. And we bring with us our culture, but we also adapt to and try to respect the cultures that are already here. So I'm learning some Navajo words, and I'm learning some Apache words, and I'm learning a few Yavpe words, but my tongue doesn't work that way. And a few Hopi words as well.
Yeah.
Roughly, our resource material, and as we describe the Southwest today, we refer to it as roughly from about California, Colorado River, to about the border of New Mexico and Texas. We say Chihuahua, Mexico is sort of the southern border, and it goes all the way up to Mesa Verde.
Wow.
Because again, in not too long ago, Mesa Verde and Paquimé, Casas Grandes, were communication. And all along the Rio Grande, that was like the internet. That's where information, that's where cultures, traditions flowed through the Southwest from the South. And then, of course, information and everything else came from the North and from the Northwest. And so we embrace the fact that, again, the Southwest has expanded and contracted and grown, but we do not, within our thinking, recognize international borders or
Sure.
state borders
Sure.
or try to define it the way that a map does today.
We're
Yeah.
more concerned with where the cultures go and
Sure.
and where
And where
they're
they were.
located and where they were.
Yeah,
Where they were.
very good. I think I would prefer the internet of the Rio Grande instead of what we have today.
Yeah, yeah, me too, I think.
Not so
me
much
too.
spam.
No
Yeah.
spam, no spam.
Well, let's cover one more thing before we go to a break. You have a guest artist series, so tell us a little bit about that, how they're chosen, and what that's about.
Sure. Our guest artist series is what is every weekend we have a different native artist from a different tribe, different reservation that comes here and demonstrates their art. You can have a very personal conversation like the one we're having now with these folks and get to know them and make a new friend and hopefully help support them. The whole coronavirus pandemic has been really, really hard on Indian country. The Navajo Nation is hit hardest of all. The very first native person to pass away from coronavirus is from my own tribe. And we've lost two of our very dear friends who are native. And so these folks, a lot of them, the reservations are still locked down. So a lot of them have to get permission before they can even come here to do these things.
Okay.
So we do one at a time to make sure they're safe. We do require that when our native artists are here, that folks be cognizant enough to wear a mask. We don't want them taking anything home to the reservation because it
Sure.
has hit Indian country so hard.
Yeah.
But it's what we're doing is we're giving them a bit of an honorarium to cover their travel expenses. Thank you to Margot and the Marriott for helping us out with sponsoring a hotel.
With the hotel rooms, yeah.
We put them up for 2 nights in Margot's beautiful Marriott Suites over there, Spring Hill Suites, and which is amazing to them. They're like, "Wow, it's a little apartment," you know.
Yeah,
They
good.
think it's great.
And a pool.
And a pool, yay!
Yeah, good.
And they can walk if they want.
And they can, and everything that they create and sell here, they get to keep 100% of those profits. And this is
Okay.
all funded through grant money that we were able to get.
Yeah, I just want to interject for a minute. During COVID, the one thing that we really realized, and it was amazing, because, I mean, we had just changed the name. And so we were getting some flack.
Sure.
And then COVID hit, no flack.
Nothing.
But what happened in those kind of 30 to 60 magical kind of days is that people at Hopi, people at Navajo, saw this institution as a link to provide them the resources that they needed so desperately
Yeah.
up there that they could not get.
Yes.
And we were so happy to fill that role. And I have to tell you, the citizens of Prescott, man, came out and just loved up
Yeah.
our Indigenous people and came with money, with food, with anything that we asked for, including thousands of masks. I think we, including paper and cloth masks, we distributed over 8,000 masks during COVID. And the other thing that happened is we immediately recognized the impact that this had on Native artists. There were no powwows, there were no shows,
Art shows,
fairs,
gatherings.
anything, you know, even roadside stands were shut down.
Sure.
So what could we do to help them? And we came up with this guest artist series, and once again, our community responded. This is funded predominantly by local people And it's continuing because of local people and the Arizona Community Foundation. And we just can't thank all of you enough, because our artists are so happy.
Yeah.
They leave here with new friends, new following, a pocket full of money, and having had a really great time.
No, that's wonderful. You know, so much innovation came out of something so horrible as the pandemic that I'm certain will continue moving forward with this guest artist series. And so thank you for reaching out. The social connection for all of us, including our Indigenous people, is so important. So thankfully we're kind of coming out of that, and hopefully there can be more social interaction. But thank you for being innovative and doing that. And I'm so glad to hear that the folks here locally have stepped up, and it doesn't surprise me.
No, no, sir.
Well, we're going to take a little break. You're watching Prescott Today, and we have so much more to talk about here at the Museum of Indigenous People, but we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Prescott Today. We're here at the Museum of Indigenous People with Cindy and Manuel, and so many great things to talk about, and it's been a great show so far. But I want to turn and talk about the exhibit here with the whirling logs. This is maybe misunderstood. I know that you've had some people walk in and see this symbol and maybe get a little agitated, but shed a little light on what we're seeing back here, and I know there's several here in the museum.
There is, sure. The proverbial elephant in the room, so to speak. Those are not swastikas, those are whirling logs. And that symbol has been used all over the planet, the entire world. We got photos of one particular use of it that date back to Paleolithic time, so about 15,000 years ago. It's used in Asian culture, African culture, here in native North America as well as South America, Europe, you name it. And in the 1940s, there was one crazy guy with a little mustache that took it, misappropriated it, and turned it into something very ugly. So now when we see that symbol, we automatically have a tendency to relate to that. But what a lot of people don't know, that not only was it used by Native people here in the United States, in art and in symbolism and religion and so on, but it was also a very prolific symbol used in regular popular American culture. Coca-Cola, the Girls Club. I mean, it was in the little silks and cigar boxes, and it meant good luck. We actually have some poker chips, you know, so you got good luck when you're playing poker, that have the symbol on it. Native people today are reclaiming it and using it. When we joined World War II, there was a bit of propaganda that was done, and photographs were taken of Native people signing a document denouncing the use of the symbol, saying they wouldn't use it in their art anymore. Well, you know, 70 years later, Native folks are starting to use it again. And of course, we can't talk about this thing without talking about the Nazis and what they did with it. So there's a very small case with some memorabilia from World War II that was brought home by Cindy's father, as well as one of our museum trustees, Brian Crossley's father. So these were trophies, so to speak, brought home, but they do show the symbol in that use. But it was meant to be good luck, and it was meant to show the four cardinal directions and it turning just as the planet turns. Tomorrow's a new day, and things are moving in balance the way they should, and good luck and all those wonderful things. We did have people come in and say, why would you have such a symbol in here? And I have to explain, ma'am, that basket was made 200 years before Hitler was born, so it's a very different thing.
Yeah,
And,
that dictator probably stole it from.
Oh, sure.
Definitely.
It's definite, true definition of what we call misappropriation today.
Yeah. Well, thanks for displaying that. It's good to hear artists are coming back and using that again, and I think that's important. Tell us some about the other events around the Museum of Indigenous People. The Native Rug Auction might be one.
Oh, sure. The Navajo Rug Auction. We usually, when it's a non-pandemic year, we do it twice a year. Of course, because of the pandemic, we switched to an online auction, which is not as fun. It's not as exciting when you're in there bidding against that other guy with the other number, you know, and you want to...
I'm familiar.
Oh, yeah. Love a live auction. So we're planning on doing that again here in October.
October 16th.
Yep.
We'll again be partnering with Burnham's and producing, and I believe this would be, if we hadn't skipped 2020, this would be our 25th year of doing live auctions with the Burnham family. We lost a critical member, which is Sherry Burnham, Bruce Burnham's daughter, at the end of 2020, but we're going to pick up the pace and do it again. And so generally speaking, we have 300 Navajo rugs, weavings.
Another 100 or so art objects.
150 of native art objects, including kachinas and baskets and pottery and jewelry and all kinds of stuff. And it's amazing and it's awesomely fun. And
It is, and you learn a lot too, because the Burnhams, R.B. Burnham's Trading Company, are just a wealth of knowledge, and then they know all about this stuff. They know the weavers and where they're from, and watched them grow up, and so they'll sit there and tell you stories about every single rug that comes down that aisle. It's fantastic.
yeah, it's great.
So where does this take place, and how can our viewers find out more information about that?
The event takes place right here on the campus, and it takes place in the Smoke Eye Pueblo building. We start taking consignments for the auction in advance of it, and all of this information will be posted on the website, www.museumofindigenouspeople.org. And just follow us on Facebook, follow us online. You'll get more information than you ever wanted in your life. We also have Constant Contact, which goes out twice a month to anyone that wants to subscribe to it, and that gives you up-to-date information about everything that's happening. We also have our consignment market coming up at the end of July, and a lot of people get stuff, you know, when they first move here. It's that kitschy little thing. And we also get lots and lots of jewelry in the consignment market, because that's difficult to sell at the auction. These are big earrings, but it's hard to see a tiny little pair of earrings in the auction. So those go in our consignment market. So it's also an awesome opportunity to pick up fabulous deals on authentic Native items as well.
Museumofindigenouspeople.org.
There we
Go
go.
there to get all the information about particularly the rug auction and other events that you guys are doing throughout the year. Two-part question. Are these buildings on the National Historic Register? And then secondly, are there any plans for expansion here on your campus?
Yes, both the museum building and the Smoke Eye Pueblo building are on the National Register of Historic Places, thanks to the hard work of Nancy Burgess. We are part of the Armory District here that includes the City of Prescott building, the Armory building, and the cemetery behind us. And yes, in between the museum and the Pueblo building is another very small building that was actually built by the Desorts, who were part of the Schwinn family in the 1960s. Unfortunately, believe it or not, that building has inferior construction at this point in time to either one of the other buildings. It was the costume room, it was a storage room. But as the museum has grown and expanded, it's become the office building. And so now we have myself, Manuel, our assistant director, Julie, our curator, Dr. Andy Christensen, a variety of volunteers, our accountant, all working in a 700 square foot building. It's a little cramped. So we have engaged Bill Otwell, and Bill is designing an amazing two-story building that will go in between these two historic buildings, provide us with ADA access, additional storage space, additional areas for outreach into the community and into our Native community as well. We are very excited that we're going to be bringing a brand new building campaign to the public very soon.
Oh, that's very exciting.
It is.
Well, good for you. And gives Manuel something to do when you leave.
Yeah, I want to keep him busy. I want to make sure he's got enough stuff to do.
That's right, that's right. Well, so good. You know, there's so much more that we could talk about here, and we're kind of running out of time, but give us a final word from each of you, and I'm going to let Cindy have the final word. But Manuel, one more thought here, maybe something that we didn't cover, or how would you like to wrap up today?
Well, come and visit us at the museum. There's so much to see here. And you can spend hours here and then come back tomorrow and spend another couple hours. You still won't see everything, even as small as our museum is compared to maybe the Herd or Amarant or anything like that. We have a lot to offer. And our volunteer staff is knowledgeable, our docents are knowledgeable, and if you catch me running around like a chick with my head cut off, you grab me and ask me questions too, and I'll be glad to answer them.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for being willing to follow Cindy and take up the helm again. I have great faith in your leadership, and it's obvious that you're very passionate about the museum here, and so thank you for your work.
I am, Wato, thank you.
Yeah. Cindy, final word?
Final word, wow. Well, I guess first I just want to say thank you to everyone in Prescott that has supported me, that has supported this museum over the past 12 to 20 years that I've been involved. I want to thank the city of Prescott for their amazing support as well. We couldn't have done it without all of you. And I just ask you, as Manuel said, to please come out and have a visit. We are very fortunate that a lot of people from out of town find us and do stop here. But I also know that there's lots of residents of the city of Prescott that haven't been here in 20 years. And the museum has undergone major changes: lighting, windows, displays, exhibits, all of it. And there's a wealth of knowledge here for you to learn and appreciate. And I just ask you to join me in the mission that I formed about 18 years ago, 17 years ago. Please try to understand and respect the indigenous cultures of the Southwest.
Yeah, well said. Well, Cindy, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
leadership through the thick and the thin, the fun and the difficult, and over all these decades. You've done a tremendous job in handing something to Manuel that he can take to the next level, but what a great foundation you've laid
Thank you, sir.
for the museum, and really appreciate your perseverance, dedication, and commitment to the Indigenous people. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Please get out to the Museum of Indigenous People. Great displays here, and it's a real hidden gem. If you have not been here, as Cindy said, really important to get out, bring the family, and come see the amazing exhibits here at the Museum of Indigenous People. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Mayor Greg Mingarelli. Thank you.